Horizon gents, welcome to REACTIN. This is why Russia is running out of cash. Hard cash. Now I don't know if this video is about like something like, oh, it's running out of cash, like ruble is collapsing in value, or they literally have like nothing left, like not even resources or something. I don't know. Don't they have oil? But Ukraine did bomb their oil reserves. I don't know. Putin is right now, I think, in India because of this. I don't know. I don't follow politics that much, but maybe I don't know. This is gonna be interesting. Let's do this one.
Solid growth driven by massive state spending, it looks like the Russian economy is finally losing steam.
Okay. So, COVID, it was in minus. Then it went up, and I think in 2022, I'm pretty sure I remember that. Like, okay, COVID was just now. What are you doing? Something like that. Wait, was it 2022 or 2021? No, 2021 February was like resurgence of COVID, the new variant, right? Something like that. It's 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine, and in the graph you can see it just collapsed again. But for some reason, I still remember like it jumped up again after all the things that were, all the sanctions that were put on it, and we were like, okay, Russia's economy, if anything, doing better because of the wartime economy. What did sanctions even do? I guess it takes time. I don't know. Now it's collapsing.
With weak growth, widening deficits, and persistent inflation. To make matters worse, in the past couple of weeks, new data has come out showing that oil revenues, one of Russia's few remaining sources of economic strength, have suddenly started to rapidly decline, in part thanks to new US sanctions on Russia's biggest oil companies. Exports are being pushed into longer shipping routes, and the Kremlin has been forced to offer steeper discounts to attract alternative buyers, as its main customers pull back to avoid sanctions exposure. So in this video, we're going to take another look at the Russian economy, and how bad things could get for the Kremlin.
See, when it comes to India, India has always followed the international laws and international norms. So when sanctions were put on like Iran, like proper UN like sanctions, India literally stopped buying from Iran. India was buying a lot of oil from Iran. When it comes to Russia, it didn't violate any laws or like international laws or whatever that was put. Like crude oil was not part of that discussion, so India was buying crude oil. But if like they changed that to crude oil now, like yeah, you can't even buy crude oil, otherwise like you're violating global law or sanctions or whatever. Yeah, India's probably gonna stop buying that. Because India doesn't break that rules, right? India doesn't break that law. If like UN and like international community decide, oh, this is like we're putting this sanctions on, yeah, India's not going to violate that. So if that changed, yeah, India's probably not going to buy from them.
Kremlin. Who is the most influential person in the world? Each year, we ask the audience to rank their top 10 most influential people across politics, media, culture, and activism. And now it's time for you.
Jason Huang, I think that's his name. Is that his name? CEO and owner of NVIDIA. Yeah. Who would have thought the graphic card company that have been buying graphic card for like 20 years now? I remember buying 128 megabytes graphic card from NVIDIA way back then. Gonna become after CUDA. I remember buying my first CUDA card as well, GT210, when the CUDA came out in 2010 or something. I don't know. That's gonna become AI structure. Like without CUDA, there is no AI. So if Jason Huang and suddenly disappears tomorrow, most of the economy, including US economy, collapses. So he's the most influential.
You to have your say. Click the link in the description to cast your vote for our 2026 ranking. Let's start with some content.
You know what? I feel like I butchered his name, or maybe that's not even his name. I need to Google his name. Jason Huang. But yeah.
Next. As we mentioned, for much of the war, Russia's economy appeared surprisingly resilient, defying early predictions of a rapid collapse. Massive wartime spending helped prop up economic activity in the immediate aftermath of the invasion, and after a contraction in 2022, Russia's GDP rebounded, with growth coming in above 4% in both 2023 and 2024, softening the impact of Western sanctions. As one of the world's largest oil exporters, alongside Saudi Arabia and the US, Russia financed much of this splurge in military spending through oil revenues, which were in turn boosted by high global energy prices. For context, when Putin launched the invasion, Brent crude, the global benchmark, was trading at roughly $100 per barrel, and in the months that followed, geopolitical turmoil pushed prices even higher, reaching a sustained peak of around $123 by mid-June. Gas prices followed a similar pattern, with prices skyrocketing as European countries desperately tried to stock up on gas before the winter, reaching a high of around €350 per megawatt hour in mid-August 2022. Even though Russia was selling its oil at a discount, these high oil and gas prices were still
megawatts per hour. That's how gas, like, how does that work? What? It's not electricity. What do you mean?
great news for the Kremlin's budget. Analysis by the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air found that Russia's hydrocarbon export revenues were about 20% higher than average, running at nearly €1 billion per day. These enormous revenues allowed Russia to massively increase spending, giving Putin the fiscal space to continue and expand his invasion of Ukraine. Even when the EU imposed an embargo on Russian oil, Russia was able to quickly shift its exports to Asia, especially India and China. Despite a slight decrease, energy revenues...
Yeah, so as the video said, Europe stocked up on like a lot of gas and things from Russia when the war kicked off. By the way, that's why price went up. And now people are pissed off why did India and China bought. But at the time they were like happy India's buying it, so Russia doesn't do drastic things. Geopolitics is weird.
...continued to remain pretty stable over the next 3 years. This was great news for the Kremlin and provided Russia with a reliable source of foreign currency, even when the rest of the economy started looking shaky. For context, as we've mentioned in previous videos, Russia's wartime spending has pushed up inflation and forced the Russian central bank to dramatically hike interest rates. While these dramatic hikes have apparently succeeded in bringing inflation down a bit, it's still running above 7% year on year, and high rates have slowed the Russian economy to the brink of a recession. Nonetheless, even if the domestic economy was looking a little dysfunctional, oil and gas revenues...
Yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, that's how economies work. Yeah, okay, you want to stop inflation rise, increase the interest price. But yeah, okay, now that's going to stop the economy. It was already a problem. There is a reason why in COVID, people literally, like American government, people like give money to people. Go out there, buy shit, because we can't have like economy stopping. There's like a lot of fuckery happens in the background they have to wary of.
...provided the Kremlin with a reliable source of revenue to fund the war. However, earlier last month, the US announced fresh sanctions on Russia's two biggest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. This was a pretty significant move, and the first time the Trump administration has actually imposed new sanctions, something Trump has threatened to do on multiple occasions. These sanctions come on top of the EU's 19th sanctions package, which includes a ban on imports of Russian liquefied natural gas and an apparent deal between Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for India to reduce its oil imports from Russia. To avoid falling foul of Trump's new sanctions, both...
Yeah, but okay, there is no there's no enforcement mechanism there, so India doesn't have to do that. On top of that, Trump just putting 50% tariff on India, saying fuck it. And now Putin is in India, so like that might be reversed. This is how geopolitics, like if you fuck up geopolitics, that's gonna happen. Like you have to be very careful. I don't know why Putin basically went chest up against Trump. Maybe Trump wouldn't have put all this tariff on those two companies if Alaska disaster didn't happen. Yeah, all right. And maybe India's still gonna buy from Russia because of the like Trump-India tariff disaster. Who knows?
India and China have sharply reduced their purchases of Russian oil and shifted towards alternatives such as Saudi crude. Indian refineries have cut back particularly hard. Imports of Russian oil are expected to plunge to around 600,000 to 650,000 barrels per day.
Because of, like sanctions. India doesn't violate sanctions, like I said. Crude wasn't part of the sanctions, so they bought crude. People got pissed off. Now they are sanctions, they're probably not going to... Like I said, Iran was like one of the biggest supplier of oil to India. India just stopped completely because of the sanctions.
In December, down from 1.87 million barrels per day in November and 1.65 million barrels per day in October. China is following a similar path. State-owned giants Sinopec and PetroChina, along with several smaller private refiners, have suspended direct purchases, a move that has disrupted nearly 45% of Russia's oil exports to China. At the same time, global market conditions are dealing another blow to Russia's oil revenues. Global oil prices have fallen pretty steadily since July, as OPEC Plus increases production and global economic growth slows, raising fears of an oil glut in 2026. Meanwhile, Russia's flagship Urals crude has been trading at a deep discount to global benchmarks. In November, that discount widened to roughly 23% below Brent, the largest in more than a year. Some reported loadings fell into the mid-$30 per barrel, the lowest since the depths of the 2022 price collapse. Russia is now expected to collect roughly 520 billion rubles, that's around about $6.6 billion, from oil and gas in November. That represents a 35% decline from a year ago and a meaningful drop even from October. With oil revenue shrinking, Russia's budget deficit is growing. Currently, the deficit is around 2.8% of GDP, but as a fifth of all spending happens in December, that's expected to increase to as much as 3.4% of GDP by the end of the year, the biggest deficit since the first year of the war in Ukraine. Without access to international credit markets, the Russian finance ministry has been forced to find other routes to plug the deficit, including tax hikes, with the basic VAT rate rising 20% to 22% starting in January. Aside from oil revenues, VAT is one of the government's most important revenue sources, accounting for about 38% of total federal revenue. The Kremlin hopes that this increase will bring in an estimated 0.5% of GDP. Alongside the increase, other measures introduced by the Kremlin included cutting tax breaks for small businesses, placing new levies on imported technology and cars, and increasing duties on gambling, which all.
But yeah, in the end of the day, like, if you're really gonna be like dictatorial, or how do you want to say, like, rule with iron fist, in the time of war, you can just basically tax the fuck out of your people and like use them as machines in a way. That works, sure. Increase taxes to other people, gambling, increase VAT. Short term, that will work. Long term, that's not really sustainable, because like how much your people can really do if everything's like against you. You can't really do what Soviet Union was just suddenly out of the blue. Like, you have to work toward that. You can't just be Iron Curtain suddenly. So I don't know. Yeah, but then again, like all the things, all the graphs I've seen, like, yeah, after the invasion, Russia has been in that position, jumped back up. Now they're again at that position. I didn't see the number large enough to be like, holy shit, Russia screwed type of way. Okay, this is economical crisis. Short term, they can get around that.
All goes against Putin's earlier promise not to raise taxes again before 2030.
Yeah.
The Kremlin is even apparently selling physical gold from its national wealth fund for the first time since the war. For context, after the invasion of Ukraine and sweeping Western sanctions, gold and the yuan were the only two assets that remained liquid and usable. Over the course of the war, Russia duly built up massive gold reserves, peaking at over 2,300 tons, the fifth largest in the world. However, these reserves have since been depleted. According to Bloomberg, 2/3 of the fund has been spent since the war began, and its liquid assets have fallen below 3 trillion rubles, the lowest level since 2019. All in all, the Russian economy is clearly showing real signs of strain, and this should provide some encouragement to American and European politicians, who sometimes seem to tacitly accept Putin's narrative that he has no incentive to make concessions in Ukraine.
Again, I don't see it strong enough for Putin to back down. He can still do a lot of things, tax the fuck out of his people, literally use them as like a machine gear of his economy with insane taxes, and just like, you're doing this for a country type of mentality. Many other deals he could just probably make with China, India, and probably some other country. I don't know, try to do some, like, I don't see this dip as extreme. It's still bad, but in the past that has happened. After the invasion, they went back up again. They're back to that same position. It's not as bad as like, oh, Russia's probably screwed and they have to run to the table. I don't see that happening.
Now, that's quite a lot of information we've thrown your way, and that's after we've simplified it down for you. So you can only imagine how overwhelming it is to sift through the hundreds of outlets reporting on it online to just find out what happened. Luckily for all of us, there's a website and app that collects all those articles and puts them all in one easy-to-access place. And that website is, you guessed
Yeah, well, go to original page and from there support this channel. Again, obviously this is a problem and this was inevitable. Like, invasion, it's been like 3 years now. Like, are you kidding me? modern day, you want to invade a country and keep the war going for 3 years, you probably wasn't even prepared, judging from how badly Russian tanks were, like how bad condition they were. Nobody even checked those tanks, because I think one of the reasons that they thought the war was going to be over in weeks, which is like, again, that feels weird to me. Why did you thought that? But all right. But like it feel like Russia was completely unprepared for a long ass war, like, war of attrition. They weren't ready for that. So it was inevitable this day was coming. But when I saw the title, I'm like, yeah, this something probably really bad happened. Like, they're really down bad. Okay, I don't see that, because around 2022, between 2022 and 2023, they were like kind of this low and then went back up again. They're low this again. They can still do something. Like, they have way too many things in their arsenal, from geopolitics to many things they can just pull to somewhat recover for a few years at least, not long term. And maybe all few years is all they need. They just need to like wait it out to see who can do it better. And to me, it feels like Ukraine is probably more screwed if the war goes on, even with all the support, because support might stop. Russia just needs to sustain. That's it, which is a problem for Ukraine. I don't know. This is what I think. Yeah, it's a problem for both sides. If 2-3 years passes by, Ukraine is fine, and Russia is still struggling like this. Yeah, it's an incentive for Russia to, let's come to the table. So maybe 2027 or 2028. Like, I'm skeptic, so that's why I'm thinking that I don't see anytime soon happening. Maybe next 2-3 years, like war might be over. Who knows? Well, if you like my next one, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.